So I listened to the audiobook narration of Lovely War by Julie Berry and I have no words. Hello beautiful people, welcome back to Faithfully Booked. So this is another video on the Faithfully Booked YouTube channel. I'm really glad to have you here. Thank you for tuning in again, and love and hugs and everything. Thank you so much. So in this video, I just want to dive right into my first experience completing an audiobook. So I've read many audiobooks. Did I say that? I have started many audiobooks in the past, but I've never completed any, right? So this is my first ever, this is the first time that I'm completing an audiobook, and the audiobook was none other than Lovely War by Julie Berry. So I listened to the Lovely War audiobook by Julie Berry, and this is my experience, right? So in total, the audiobook was about 13 hours and I finished reading it in about 6 days. So this book is set in the 1900s, around the World War I period, right? And it follows two romance stories. It follows the story of Aubrey and Colette, and it also follows the story of Hazel and James. So Hazel is a pianist and James happens to be, just a young guy who's about to join the army to fight in the World War I, a British soldier, right? And we have Colette. Colette is Belgian, and basically she lost like every member of her family to the war. Like some people came to attack Belgium. I think the Germans attacked Belgium. She also happens to be a singer. And we also have Aubrey. Aubrey is a Black American soldier, right? So this book basically just follows their stories. It follows the stories of Aubrey and Colette and Hazel and James in the 1900s, in the time of World War I. See how Hazel and James meet, how they fall in love only to be separated by war, right? We also see how eventually Hazel and Colette meet and the friendship that develops between them, and how they eventually meet Aubrey the Black soldier, right? And so this book just really dives into romance and love in the midst of war, right? We see how the war not only brings people together, see how the war also separates people. And this whole story is done, like the narration of the story, the romance story is done by Greek gods, right? So we know the Greek gods: Aphrodite, Ares, Hephaestus, Hades, and Apollos, right? So they are the ones telling this story. You just really get to see how the gods always have their hands in the lives of these humans. We see when these people are falling in love, we see Aphrodite is playing a hand there. We see in the music, we see Apollos there. In the midst of war, we see Ares there. And in the face of death, we see Hades. So, like I said, James goes, fights in the war. You see Hazel also playing her own part in the war. Joins the YMCA, the Young Men's Christian Association, as a volunteer. So that's where she actually meets Colette and they become friends. They, and eventually they also meet Aubrey. In this book, we get like a very close shot of World War I. We get to see World War I. We see the effects of war. We see, what people went through in the war. We see how the war separated families. We see, the effects of the war even after the war had ended, right? And some of those effects were, shell shock, right? Shell shock on the part of the soldiers. We also see, children growing up without their fathers. We see pregnant wives separated from their husbands. So we just really got to see war. We got to see the effects of war firsthand, right? So this book just, this book was really educative. It really educated me on, on a whole lot that happened in World War I through the lens of fiction, right? Which is really beautiful. I think a book that is similar to this book is Nightingale by Christine Hanna, and people really loved that book. I think it was a good book, right? But I don't know if I loved it, but it was a good book. I have to agree that it was a good book. Another thing that we see in the midst of all of this book also really educates us and just helps us to see what those Black soldiers also went through in the midst of World War I, right? So it's not just that they were fighting for their country and all of that, because we see how the war just placed demands on people to enlist in the army to fight for their nation out of duty and all of that. We see the different things that the war brought about on this, on people, how we just dramatically change people's lives, right? We also see that in the midst of all of this, there was racism. We see that in the midst of all of this, there were racial issues, right? And we see what those Black soldiers actually had to go through, even in the midst of World War I. We see them finding love in the midst of war, and the war basically playing a number on them, separating them, bringing them together, and all of that. And it got to a point where, you know, the book was nearing its end, and everything was working out for the couples and everything. And I was like, this is too good to be true. Something has to happen. And true to that, something did happen. But, you know, I guess you just have to read it to actually find out if, you know, these two couples have their happy ending or not. It was an historical fiction book, and he did such an amazing job just educating me and creating, you know, more, just basically educating me and just showing me some of the details of the World War One that I might not have really known about, right? Because the whole thing with the racism, I didn't even know that was happening. Obviously, I know that racism has always been a thing, right? But I didn't even know that was something that the black soldiers that were fighting against the Germans and battle and contend with, right? So I think that's just everything that I'm going to say. So now, to my experience listening to the audiobook. Like I said, this audiobook was about 13 hours. I had such an amazing time listening to this audiobook. And at the end of my whole experience reading the book, listening to the book, I was like, why do people not like audiobooks? Because it was actually done so well. This particular audiobook, in the places where, as I mentioned, that Colette is Belgian, right? So she's from Belgium, right? So even things like her accent, it was done really well in the audiobook. Things like, because there were different narrators for each of the characters, everything was just done really, 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 really well. And like I said, like a god was narrating, you know, a particular character, a particular story. So everything was just done really, 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 really well. And I just really enjoyed my experience listening to this particular lovely war audiobook. So something that the audiobook really did was that, you know, there was even music playing, right? Music was playing in the audiobook, you know, there was even singing. Everything was just done really, really, really well. Everything like this, the audiobook experience was just a 10 over 10. And the book itself, I think I rated it like, I rated about 4.5 stars. So it was really, really, really good. I liked the plot. I liked the chemistry. I liked the relationship between Aubrey and Colette, the relationship between Hazel and James. I liked the friendship between them. I liked the friendships that they formed. I liked, you know, getting to know their families, getting to see all these different things. Everything was just done so well. Nothing was done like half and, you know, just left and not fully developed. I think one of the themes that this book really, really drew out, because like I've already said like 5 times already in this video, right, this book was set during the time of World War One, right? And so we got to see a whole lot of war. We got to see the effects that war had on people, the effects that war had on, you know, families, the effect that the war had on nations and everything. And, you know, even when we check that against, you know, our current time, we see that, you know, we are in times of war. We see that, you know, there's war. This nation and this nation, they are fighting. This country is fighting against this country. This kingdom is fighting against this kingdom and everything. And we just see the effect of this war. And we actually just have to wonder, like, is this thing actually worth it? Like, nations going against nations, the amount of people that are dying as a result of these wars, right? Like, is it actually worth it? Like, is it worth it? And obviously, like, on my own part, I'm like, no, of course. Like, people are dying in numbers, people are dying in thousands, and these people keep on persisting, waging war. And it's just like when you consider the effects of the war, when you consider something that, you know, that you'd always hear, oh, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they were bombed, and till today they are still experiencing the effects of this one. You just consider that, you know, all these things, like, can't we just talk and all of that? And like, it doesn't even seem like it's going to come to an end anytime soon. And Bible actually just backs it up and helps us understand that these things are actually just the beginning of the birth pangs, right? Kingdoms are going to fight against kingdoms. There's going to be earthquakes, there's going to be famine, there's going to be a whole lot, right? And it's just really, really, really crazy. But, you know, that's good that we have the Bible to cross check, like, our present day. This has already been prophesied, this is going to happen, this, and to basically just be on the right side, right? To just be on the right side, because we know that this world is going to come to an end. It's just important to be on the right side. It's just important to, you know, just be on God's side. Basically, it's just important, right? Because we know that this is the beginning of the birth pangs. Things are still going to happen, things are still going to happen, right? But at the end of the day, right, Jesus is actually coming back soon. Like, you know, it's just important that we make it right with Jesus Christ, and just believe in Jesus Christ, right? And just get to actually know this Jesus Christ for ourselves, and just be in the word, right? Be in the Bible, get to know what is going to happen, get to know how we should be living in these last days, because even though these last days are seeming really, really long, we are actually in the last days, right? The back of Jesus is much closer than it was, like, let's say 1,000 years ago. So Jesus is coming back, and a question that you need to ask yourself is like, if Jesus comes back like tomorrow, if Jesus returns tomorrow, like, are you going to actually be with him? Are you going to actually, like, do you believe in Jesus Christ? What did you do with Jesus Christ? If you're asked all those questions, what is going to be your response? Jesus is coming back, right? That Jesus, he did rise again, and he's with God, right? He's at the right hand of God, and he basically wants us all to believe in him. So before it's too late, just believe in Jesus Christ for yourself, right? Know Jesus Christ for yourself, know God for yourself, invest in your relationship with Jesus Christ, right? This is the best thing that you can actually do for yourself, right? Because it will matter even when you die, right? Because we're all going to die, right? And everything. So even when we die, it is that relationship with Jesus that still carries weight, right? You cannot carry anything, after death. If they let them bury you with all your possessions on the earth, right? So you're not carrying anything, your soul has long departed, right? So it is only your relationship with Jesus Christ that you can carry out of this earth, right? So that's just my, please move on to the righteous side. Believe in Jesus Christ, believe in Jesus Christ. Jesus loves you, believe in Jesus Christ today. And so Lovely War was such a really, really, really good romance book, and it's not like there was any spice. It was just so clean, and it was just so beautifully written, beautifully narrated, and I absolutely, like I already said, love the audiobook experience. I also tried immersion reading, and immersion reading is basically when you're listening to the audiobook and you're also reading the physical book, that sort of thing. Not like I have the physical book, but reading the ebook. And so at some point in time while I was listening to the audiobook, I also was reading the physical book, or the soft copy of the book, and I really, really enjoyed that as well. It was really, really fun. So big ups to and well done to the people that did the narration, because they really, really just made it to be really, really fun. Because I know that I've listened to some audiobooks that the narration wasn't done so well. So I think an audiobook is, I think it just depends on the narration of the book, right? Because they can take a book that is really good and just give it to one narrator that is not so good, that doesn't do such a good job, and it basically just, like, the experience just plummets. But Lovely War was an amazing book, and the narration was really good. So my audiobook experience was a 10 out of 10, and you definitely should read this book. So thank you for coming around today. Thank you for watching this short video. I think this video is a short video. I don't think it's really long, but please read Lovely War. Read Lovely War. And you can also check out Nightingale by Christina, because both of these books just really expose us to the horrors, right, and to the details and the particulars and the specifics of of the world wars, right, of the world wars. I don't remember if Nightingale was World War I or World War II, but anyways, we're sure one of the world wars, right? Please, if you're going to read any book on World War, these are the two books that I've read on the World War, so please make sure that you check them out, and I would love to hear your experience either reading the books or listening to the audiobooks. And I'll see you next time. Make sure you press that like button and subscribe. See you next week.